Welcome to another edition of the Buckeye Bar Guys. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
We are here to discuss last night's game against Rutgers, 49-27 victory for the Buckeyes. A lot of good things in the first half, a lot of sloppiness in the second half, but we're gonna discuss that right now. How you doing tonight, John?
I'm good. It was ugly. At least second half. I mean, it was a lot of trick plays. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but no, I'm good. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Took advantage of it being nice outside today, so I got the yard work done over here. So
Yeah, Katie and I went on a walk, so that was nice for us. No Browns today.
yeah. So
lazy
all
Sunday.
right. Yeah. So okay. So as I said, they won 49-27. Dominant first half. I mean, they were up 35-3 going into halftime. I mean, really nothing went wrong in that first half. Defense looked good. Offense looked great. I mean, Justin Fields just been doing what Justin Fields has been doing all year long. He's just slinging it to everybody, throwing touchdowns. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave still look like they can't be covered whatsoever. And then you also, on top of it, Jamison Williams gets into the mix and has a big touchdown early in the game. So, tons of good to talk about in the first half.
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, those guys catch everything. It seems like, and I know they've each actually dropped a touchdown this year in the first and second game. Olave the first, Wilson the second one, but it just seems like they catch everything. Our bold prediction that Garrett Wilson was going to be the biggest mismatch in college football definitely seems like it's coming true. So and Justin Fields, what else can you say about the guy? This is one, I know that we're only 3 games in, but this is the best start to a season I've ever seen for a quarterback.
Yeah.
And maybe that's outside of Burrow last year. But it's crazy. He has more touchdowns accounted for than he has incompletions through 3 games.
That's just nuts to me.
And he's throwing 30 times a game. He's averaging over 300 yards.
And he is definitely, I believe you're the one that said one of your big predictions is that he was going to have a better accuracy percentages than even Dwayne. And he's
well above it. He's high.
Seems like that's going to be true.
Yeah. So it's insanity right now.
No, I think probably the only thing it's a nitpick thing is sometimes he still holds onto the ball a little too long. I would say 2/3 of his sacks are still accounted to him. It seems like than anything else, but I guess you just live with it. That's the way he plays football. He's not going to take off necessarily and run the ball. He's always looking for the open receiver. And as you saw a lot of times in that game yesterday, somebody comes open and the majority of the time he finds them. So I guess at this point you just take the sack. As long as he stays healthy, you take the sacks with it.
He looks for the big plays, but you've even seen him materialize into this quarterback that when the big play is not there, he's finding, his last option that, the running back out on the flats or something. So he's definitely, it's just phenomenal watching this guy. And he was good last year. And watching how much better he's gotten in one offseason, it's just been incredible, especially when you take into consideration, the type of practice that he lost when in reality. So it's been a lot of fun to watch him so far.
Yeah, definitely. Now I think we'll get into the biggest question is still offensively is the running game. So we'll talk about the running game just because like I said, you look on Twitter, Facebook, that's where everybody's concerns are at right now offensively. And the big picture, no back necessarily had, nobody had 100-yard game, but they didn't run the ball bad when you look at overall. Sermon was 12 for 68 for 5.7. Teague was 12 for 60, 5.0. Chambers was 4 for 46, 11.5. McCall got in for 12 yards. I mean, they had 203 yards rushing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and you think about the passing game, I mean, that you're throwing over 300 yards. I mean, that's a fairly balanced game. And I think to me, as I kind of try to take a step back from maybe the running game was starting to kind of frustrate me sometime yesterday. But when you look at the stats, it's like, okay, you know, maybe they're not doing as bad as it's showing up just because, we were just J.K. Dobbins just spoiled us so much last year. And that if they're getting over 200 yards and, they're winning the games, and I would say that the Rutgers coming back on them in the second half, that had nothing to do with the running game necessarily. So, I mean, I don't know.
No, I mean, I agree with you for the most part about it. Some of the play calling with the running backs, though, isn't making a lot of sense to me. Like, Teague, he cannot get off tackle. He can't do that run that, Zeke and Weber and JK did. He can't do it. He can run downhill. That's what he can do. And I don't know. After yesterday, I know I was all like saying about Steel Chambers from week one. I'm interested to see DeMario get a little bit more into the mix because I think he can make those runs that what they're trying to do there. He has the speed to do it. And I still think Sermon try to give him, more, and they gave him some more yesterday, but try to give him some more reps to see what he can do. I think he needs to get going, but he's the more dynamic of the back. So I love Teague's running style. I'm not trying to criticize him. It's just he doesn't give you a lot as far as, being elusive, getting away from people.
Yeah. I think part of it with the play calling is sometimes it seems like to me is that I think sometimes coaches get a little concerned that if this running back can only do certain things and that running back can only do certain things, then we are obvious when one or the two backs are in there. But sometimes, I mean, I've watched a lot of football, and you always hear the people say, don't get too, don't be too consistent, or keep on showing the same stuff over and over. Eventually it's going to stop. But if you're really good at something, I would still take my better players against your better players. So, if Teague's in the game and the defense knows that they're going to run straight at you, well, you got to challenge the linemen that, well, they're going to know. So just block them, knock them off the ball, and let them through.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. You don't have to like disguise things. Like, it doesn't have to be like, oh, they know Teague's going to run into them. We got to change something up. Like, be stronger than them. Be better than them. You got the offensive line to do it, that you can run straight at these guys. I think DeMario McCall, I mean, he's an interesting one because I know everyone thinks he would be undersized to be a between the tackles guy, but he looks like he put on some weight in the offseason. Like, I mean, hell, he's been with Mick for how long? I would think he's, pretty strong. So I don't know.
All the times that he's gotten opportunities to run over the years, he actually does run strong. It's just he's just that guy that, and I don't know if he maybe puts himself in the doghouse at different times, but he gets lost in the whole shuffle. And it just seemed like that way every year. So
always does. I know. He's not a great returner. I know that. So, yeah. I mean, I think this is probably a good fit for him, but I don't know. So I'm still not hitting the panic button on the run game because, like you said, some good things happen, and you can't discount big chunk runs because they happen and they're big momentum swings. So, I mean, you probably, if you break things down, like obviously Steele wasn't averaging 11 yards a carry. He had that huge on the fake punt. Yeah. He had that big run. Exactly. But I mean, it still happened. So it's a big momentum swing. So you can't say like the running game is not affected because you are still getting a handful, maybe, a little less, but you're still getting a couple, 20 plus yard runs or 15 plus yard runs per game. Still, it's not what we're looking for. And we haven't really, got someone to be that bell cow back that we're used to that can just grind people down or can consistently, get 7-yard gains on them. But it'll happen or it won't. I mean, I feel so confident in the passing game that you're always going to have a little bit in the running game, and the running game is competent enough that passing game can still work, that the team won't get one-dimensional.
Yeah. And I'll talk about this more when we get to defense. I think part of us also has to remember that, I mean, we're kind of comparing these guys to some of the other teams we're watching. I mean, the Notre Dame we saw last night, and I get it, Trevor Lawrence wasn't there. They had a lot of guys out on defense, but the Notre Dame we saw last night doesn't look like the Notre Dame we saw at the beginning of the year. I mean, this is still 3 games in.
Right.
They look like a team still that missed a lot of practice time because of everything with COVID. And granted, I've heard people say, well, they actually had more practice days, but they weren't really working on some of the stuff that they needed to be working on because, there's just been so many precautions taken to make sure nobody got sick, and it's starting to show.
Well, and you got to remember, they had 12 hours, I think, a week that they could do practices. Or was it 12 total? Is it 12 total?
I think when they canceled the season, it was only 12. So
that they could actually do on-field work, or was it just 12 hours total?
I thought it was on field. I think they were still allowed
maybe 20 hours total.
Yeah.
I don't remember it. I'm not going to look it up, but they didn't have a ton of time, and you got to, during that time, all you can do is 7-on-7. What else can you do?
Yeah.
Realistically, you're not hitting anybody. That's all you can do is work on your pass game, which it shows.
Yeah. So, that's just, to me right now, I'm willing to see, as long as they progress through the stretch. These next 2 weeks we'll get to Maryland later in the week, but the next 2 weeks look like they're going to be harder than we originally thought. And so they got to be ready for these games. Both these teams now have had big wins.
Yeah.
And maybe Penn State's worse than we thought, but it's still Penn State. Maryland on any given year shouldn't be able to beat Penn State. And
not the way they did.
And they beat them up. So,
yeah. But, I don't know. You'd still got to figure we have a decisive talent advantage.
Yeah. And so the running backs, I think they just need to clean up a couple of things. They need and maybe you're going to be an obvious play caller when certain running backs are in there, but whatever. I think I trust these guys enough that, and then you could create some crazy pass plays off of that. If Master Teague is a straight hill back, well, the best way to deal with that is you play action and you let Olave and Garrett Wilson and Jamison Williams just torch safety if they're going to bring safeties up. So, we know how good of a play caller Ryan Day is. So you use your play calling abilities to your advantage at that point.
What do you think about Rutgers lining up as a fullback?
I liked it. It was something different. Maybe they went to the well a little too much on it. They were showing it a lot throughout the game, but that's another thing you have to kind of throw now.
Put it on tape. Exactly. Make someone practice for it. Doesn't mean you'll ever see it again, but you make them practice for it. So,
and maybe next time it'll be Rutgers getting the ball instead of thinking about on a 3rd and short. Maybe when they need a 3rd and short one of these days, and everybody's looking at Teague or whatever, and then you just give it to the up man, and it's Rutgers that hits the first down on us.
So, how excited? I know you. How excited are you that Rutgers has 3 red zone touchdowns this year?
I love it. I told I was watching it with Dad last night because and I'm just like I'm like, we're throwing the ball to the tight ends. This is great.
Life is good. Yeah,
that's where and I'm not looking. They don't have to. I've always been with Ohio State. They don't need to be Penn State. They don't need to be Iowa. They don't need to be Wisconsin with the tight ends.
Well, they got so many other weapons. You don't have to rely on that.
But it's just a weapon when you're down in the red zone or you need a 3rd and 5 first down that, I just wish they would be more aware of that. Hey, we do got these great tight ends here that throw them some love every now and then and see what they can do.
Well, and it's just honestly, I mean, and what I kind of go back to with the tight ends is you got two receivers that have great hands and they're always open. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's so I like that the tight ends get involved, but I don't get too upset, if they don't have great stats.
Yeah. So I think with the running game, the two biggest things I would fix is, you know what, just I don't care if you're an obvious play caller, just run plays that are to your guys' strengths.
Right.
And on these short yardage things, Stud and if Stud can't do it, maybe Mick needs to do it. Somebody needs to get into these linemen's faces and be like, you guys are great pass blockers. Knock some guys off the ball when we need to get 1 yard. And
It's like obviously these guys are better linemen than I ever was, but it's like they're hitting them, but they're not staying engaged with them some of the time. And I mean, you can see the advantage. They knock the guys back, but then they just kind of like let them go. Like,
yeah.
just blow
And
them off the ball, put them on the ground.
We saw them all. I mean, we saw 3 of them. I mean, I've seen 3 of them run blocked. I know they're really good. I mean, outside of last night's game, I mean, Harry Miller's been praised all year. I mean, he had a rough game, but
What was that? Did he insult that referee's mother or something? Like, what the hell, man?
I mean,
when was the last time you've seen one lineman called for 3 holds in 1 half?
Yeah, when you look at them though, they were all obvious holds. I mean, he was beat off the ball on every single one of them. I mean, I wasn't expecting that, but he's what is he, a red shirt or is he?
Well, he's a sophomore. He played enough games last year.
Yeah, he played enough games. So, I mean, he's still young. He didn't play a lot. I mean,
right. He didn't play a lot of meaningful snaps last year.
So, I mean, he's young. And he learns that, that's not just that guy might be fat across from you, but this isn't high school fat where the guy can't move. These guys can move too. So I mean,
well, and I don't know if that one was ever if he was lined up on him, but they had that one that was actually really undersized on Rutgers line, but they were he was doing a hell of a job because he's so damn quick. I remember one play though, and I think it was the second quarter when he got like his second or third hold. The very next play, Josh Myers gave him a little help, and he just crushed the guy that was over Harry Miller. He was like, "Here, I'm gonna help you out on this one."
At MPF, he got into it on a little bit on the sidelines. I mean, he's really impressing me as a tackle. I mean, nobody is getting to Justin Fields off of either tackle spot.
And
it seems like when the line is making mistakes right now on pass protection, it seems like it's coming up the middle. And I mean, and they're not making enough mistakes for me to be concerned about it. I mean, stuff happens. You misread things. If it was happening a lot more, I'd be a lot more concerned about it. But I mean, like I said, it still seems like the majority of the sacks are more on Justin than it are on anything. But
I'm going to need to see a really bad game from the middle line before I start to worry about Harry Miller, Josh Myers, and Wyatt Davis.
Yeah. So I think we're still good with the offensive line. They just need to shore up a couple of things in the short yardage situations. I think they're fine with Teague and Sermon at times when it's 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8. I mean, they're or 1st and 10. I mean, it seems like they're getting their 5 yards to carry. So it doesn't seem like that is a concern. That it's one they just need to knock them off the ball and stay on them so your back can get to the 1 or 2 yards. And maybe they're used to letting go a little earlier to go look for linebackers. Well, these might be the type of backs that you just have to get the defensive linemen out of the way and let the running backs get to that 1, 2, 3 yards, whatever they need to get to that first down.
Yeah, they gotta be quicker identifying their lanes if they're going to run this way.
Yeah,
they're just. I mean, I've seen Sermon so many times that I know he has a little bit of shiftiness to him, and there is 20 yards in front of him, but he can't get there quick enough, and someone hits his foot, and it totally derails his run.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. So I'm not ready to hit the panic button on the run game yet.
So I definitely think we feel pretty good about the offense overall. They still got a couple things to fix up. Just everybody remember, it's still just 3 games in for them. The next 2 weeks will be good tests for them, and I think if as long as they raise to their level that they should be at, then I think we're fine. But at least the one positive is Maryland, how Maryland and Indiana has looked should get them really focused into these games. I mean,
They're gonna throw on. They're gonna try to throw on them. So
and the offense was sloppy in the second half. They didn't really get going that much in the third quarter until they finally started getting going, and then got a couple more, 2 more touchdowns. But I mean, it just seems like that happens with Rutgers. It happened to Rutgers last year. It's just like at a point, those guys, and that's why I hate it to be night games. These guys, they know they're better than them, and they just want to get this game over with at this point. And that's what the offense in the second half felt like to me. And I mean, I get it. That stuff has to be corrected. You can't take anybody for granted, but
no, I hate that. Like, you can't take off halves because you won a game, because that will trickle down eventually.
yeah.
That's always the thing that scares me about that stuff, and we'll talk about that here more in a little bit. But when you stop trying your hardest, eventually it doesn't matter that you won that one game. That's going to become a mindset, and it's going to happen somewhere else down the road where you don't want it to.
Yeah, and football's momentum. So where Rutgers scored 4 touchdowns here, somebody else might end up getting 6 touchdowns, and you might be in real danger to lose a game. So
right.
So we'll move on to the defense. Again, the first half I thought looked really well. The defensive line is still, I mean, it's just like every week I think they're getting better and better.
Yeah.
They are definitely establishing themselves in the LJ defense line, and that's just boding well to me for the later down the season, because that's just they're getting better and better every week, and they're going to be nasty come the end of the year. And I mean, they're already nasty now. I love what I'm seeing from the defensive tackles. You're starting to see both Antoine and Tehran now get into it. I saw Cage make a couple plays last night, so it's like now the depth is starting to trickle.
Right, I know. Even more like those tackles are starting to all come together. So yeah, that's really exciting, especially how well those top, like the starters, are playing.
And it seems like the ends are starting to get into their groove. I mean, Baptiste is looking really well. I mean, Friday had a huge hit. Zach Harrison was in a couple of things. Coop's been Coop. I mean, so I think the whole defensive line is starting to really, really look good. That's to the point that if they do get to the playoffs, they could be a defensive line at the end of the year that could be a national championship defensive line. And that's the biggest thing you need on defense is the win.
No, I agree. I agree so much on that. And I mean, what we were seeing against Nebraska too, the ends really, it seems like, they're sealing the edge much better than they did that first week. So it seems like that they got that corrected. Any issues that they had in the middle of the field, it seems like that's gotten better. So yeah.
And then so going off the defensive line, I mean, there were some concerns in the first game with the linebackers. The last 2 weeks, I haven't had any concerns with the linebackers. I mean, they're all looking good right now. I mean, Browning's had some big plays. I mean, Hiller had a big play. I mean, Warner's looking good. Tuff's looking good. I mean, I'm liking where I'm at right now.
Gant's looking good when he's getting in there. He's flying around. Baron Browning, man, how fast is that guy? He just he flies to the ball. I mean, and the thing with Baron Browning is I've always been concerned, like when he has to think a little bit too much, when he's kind of out of that just natural athlete, go get him type position. So as long as nobody can really get him to a point where they're like tricking him, and I mean, it's obviously simpler said than done, but if he's just playing that, just use your talent, use your athleticism to go get the guys, he's going to have a good year. I mean, he could see himself get drafted.
Yeah. All right. Secondary. I don't know. There's things about the secondary that I'm not hating, and then there's things about the secondary that I'm really concerned about. On the things that I'm not hating right now, and this is maybe a little weird, I still haven't seen anybody try to challenge Sevyn Banks' side. It seems like when everybody's challenging Sean's side, and so to me, that must mean Seven's doing his job.
So yes, I would agree with that, but no one's thrown on them in the first half. So that's something to me that I'm still like happy with because obviously assignments are being okay. So Sean Wade has got beat by a couple one-handed catches. He
Yeah.
had, a poor effort play at the end of that Penn State game. And it was a short pass to a tight end, which he actually had pretty good position in that Rutgers
Yeah.
game. It's just he kind of, I don't know. I mean, he was going the other way from the ball. Sometimes people catch things. I mean, he's a tight end. He's bigger and stronger than him.
It just seems,
usually have good hands.
it just seems weird that the touchdowns are coming to Sean's side, where I think we would have expected it to come to the other side. But I don't know. That's just been weird to me.
Yeah.
Overall,
No.
I don't think they're playing as bad as a lot of people think they are. I think the part of the problem is that they haven't gelled yet as a unit because, again, 3 games in, they didn't do any tackling drills, and it's starting to really be obvious the lack of tackling drills. And it's just whenever Ohio State seems like they have problems with tackling over the years, it's always the secondary. It's they think they're in high school and they're going to knock this guy over by lowering their shoulder, and it's like, you got to wrap them up.
I don't get it. Like, do they not want any chance of a targeting call or something? I mean, I can't remember. Actually, no, I can remember. I think it was 2012 or 2013, maybe both years. We had the same, crap consistently that our secondary, they kept trying to knock people over with their shoulders instead of wrapping up, and guys would just bounce off of them and go for 20-yard gains all the time. I mean, I'm sure you remember that. So that's what it's looking like to me, is like there's no discipline on the tackling, and they're just trying to use their shoulders to bring people down, and it's not working. Yeah. I mean, Hafley was a hell of a defensive coordinator. We all know that, but those guys, I mean, Arnett, Wade last year, Okuda, like they flew through people. Like they went through their guts and they wrapped them up. I mean, that was one of the best tackling secondaries I can remember.
And, and even when Ash was here, that was the biggest thing he fixed, with his stuff, that it's
right.
Like, his couple years, I mean, they were a very good tackling secondary then too. And
right. You gotta wrap them up around the waist and you roll them. Like, yeah, Ash, they had good fundamentals when Ash was there, but it's like any kind of I don't know. I don't know if it's Kerry Combs, if he teaches that or not. I mean, Kerry's a hell of a coach, so yeah. I'm not gonna go after the guy. I don't think he does anything wrong, but it just something's not right with the tackling, and it could just be that they didn't get to do it in the offseason.
And right now, that's what I'm going with. Now, they should start improving through the year because now you are tackling. You're tackling in practice and you're tackling in game. So, I mean, you are tackling. So, I mean, you can't use the excuse anymore that they need to start improving on their tackling. I think part of it, why I'm not ready to start crucifying again, lack of contact drills in off season. And then on top of it, we knew that this was where the biggest issues on depth on the team was going to be.
Yeah.
That's kind of showing. You're asking a lot of, even though some of these guys have been in the program for a while, you're asking a lot of guys that have not really had to deal with it, be the man yet to be the man.
And with Hafley, out of all things, Seven Banks, and I know Cam's hurt now, but they didn't play till garbage time last year.
Yeah.
So he didn't rotate those guys. Like, so they have not seen a ton of meaningful in-game snaps. Well, I don't know. I mean, because I know Sean was out for the Michigan game, so I might take that back. And Sean got kicked out of the Clemson game.
But. And Arnett got hurt a couple times, so there were. And then
they did get some playing time. I'm not going to say
again, it's not to the consistency that a starter gets. So
right. I mean, obviously, the weird offseason did nobody any favors.
Yeah. And again, like I said just a little bit ago with the offense, is that you got to remember this is still a team that this is just week 3. And there was a lot of people a lot of people around college football that was bitching about how bad defenses looked early in the season. And it seems like defenses, it's starting to even out a little bit more. Just, I mean, defense is not what defense was 15 years ago. So, but it seems like the better teams are starting to actually make some defensive stops, outside of Georgia, who, but their problem is still that they have no offense. And, a team with no offense, I don't care how good your defense is. This isn't Oklahoma of 2000 anymore. You need to put up some type of offensive showing.
I cannot believe with the recruit that guy has gotten, his offenses are so just terrible.
Yeah.
Get a quarterback.
Exactly.
Throw the ball.
He's not looked. I mean, him and Mark Richt have basically been the same coach. That's the joke of it.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I'm glad that Dwan Mathis and Justin Fields, I'm glad how that played out.
Yeah, that switching of positions looked okay to me. Even though you got to assume, even though he's nowhere near Justin Fields, you got to assume that Dwan Mathis would still look better in Ryan Day's offense.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know he would. That team. I mean, they're not going anywhere. I mean, they've already lost 2 games, so they're out. So
yeah. Just to finish up on the defense, the trick plays. So I saw a lot of people upset about the trick plays. And you know what? I won't lie. You know what the whole thing to the trick plays to me is like, it was Greg Schiano is pissed off that Ryan Day ran that fake punt on him. Like, why did you need to run a fake punt on me? And I have 100 trick plays. I'm going to use them all on you in the second half.
But I think the fake punt was Ryan Day being pissed off that Schiano called 3 trick plays in the first as soon as the game started. I'm like,
yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, the trick plays, honestly, the thing that pissed me off the most about them is we didn't actually get to work on anything during the game because it was all stuff you're never going to see. And no one's going to go a whole game plan, just trick plays. I mean, someone said, I bet the practice this week for Rutgers was a lot of fun. And I'm sure it was because that made me more mad than them scoring the touchdowns was that we weren't actually getting to work on anything because he kept calling damn trick plays every other play.
Yeah. I think that the practices this week for Maryland and next week for Indiana, these are going to be some pretty physical practices. I think they're going to really. They're gonna start waking them up. They're gonna awaken them to, these aren't pushover teams that you once thought they were. So, but when I was watching some of these trick plays, I was thinking, and of course this is gonna age us like crazy, but I'm like, this is Little Giants. Where's that little nerd kid on the sideline? He's coming up with his little trick plays, and they're gonna run the fumble rooski on us, and like it's just
what's the one the annexation of Puerto Rico.
Yeah. And I know there's probably younger people are really like, what the hell are they talking about? Little Giants.
Yeah, check it out if you haven't.
So that's I like Schiano's he watched Little Giants before the game, or he's got the guy from The Water Boy, that coach Winkler's he's like, he got his Coaching for Dummies book out. He's started the coach again and coming
Coach
up with
those. Yeah. Ed O'Neill and Rick Moranis, they gave him some inspiration on
from
the game plan. But now I hate that when you give up touchdowns on this stuff. I just can't believe that was their game plan going in, was we're just going to run a bunch of trick plays all game long. But hopefully we don't see that ever again. I don't think any team would do that. I mean, in important situations.
I'm not saying Maryland and Indiana might not throw a couple trick plays at you, but you can't win. You're not going to beat a team like Ohio State by just running trick plays, because gimmick plays, eventually somebody screws up, a receiver throwing the ball that shouldn't be throwing the ball, throws a pick six or something, or throws a big interception in a big part of the game. So, I mean, you can't win games like that. It was crazy watching them with all those trick plays.
Man, I don't know. Day might beat them by like 70 next year.
He might be tired of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty basic game. I mean, it's just as a fan, it's hard for me to get up for Rutgers, and that's why I hate it was a night game. I mean, I love the Buckeyes. I love the Buckeyes more than anything, but like you don't know how much. I mean, I was glad that Clemson Notre Dame game went into overtime, so I actually got to watch the last several minutes of it. And I mean, and we flipped it back. We have 4 TVs here, so it was on one of the TVs, plus on the Buckeyes TV. We were flipping it over there during commercial breaks. It just, why can't the Rutgers game be a noon game so I can enjoy the rest of my day of college football?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, don't do that to us. Like, let us just get that game out of the way and go on to the rest of the games, because there was some, I mean, there was a lot of butt kickings yesterday, now that I think about it, but
yeah,
and Michigan.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about them here. I mean, I think we both want to. I mean, we both have stuff going on, getting ready for the work week. But so we'll probably call it a night here in a minute. But because I don't. I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about Maryland than I thought we were originally going to be talking about Maryland. I mean, I figured that we were going to have back-to-back weeks of we'll skim over Rutgers and Maryland when we were doing the preview shows and talk about some other stuff. But I do want to talk a little bit about Michigan this week, because I mean, COVID-19, the issues inside the budget issues inside might be the only thing that saves Jim Harbaugh's job. And even though that's not good, because he's only signed for another year. And so like their recruiting is going to suffer like major, because he's like, basically it seems like just a dead man walking right now. I mean,
you got to move on from that.
You got to come to some sort of agreement this year. Maybe ask him, be like, can we spread the buyout over several years or something? I mean, we need to mutually part ways right now. Like, it's just not working.
I don't think I don't think either party has any interest of continuing that relationship.
I don't know. I mean, yeah. And I'm sure the president and him are just so ticked off at each other right now. Mm-hmm. And it's just I don't know if he's going to get an NFL job though, to alleviate. I think if somebody came calling and it was like, maybe it would make it easier, but I don't know if he's going to get that now.
Yeah. There's no easy fix here. I just think that they got to move on from him. That was terrible. Don Brown should be fired like immediately.
Well, he should have been fired last year. I mean, even if you were going to give him another chance after the 2018 Ohio State game, after the 2019 Ohio State game, be like, all right, it's just this, your defense just doesn't work against us. And now what I'm seeing, Michigan State with their athletes run some of the stuff Ohio State runs. And Indiana, what they did, I'm just like everybody, I saw on a bunch of Michigan boards before the season that because Ryan Day supposedly said that he's going to put 100 on them. But like, I don't know if he has to try to put 100 on them. Like, their defense is that bad. I don't know how you stop them.
No, they can't. I mean, especially how Justin Fields is throwing the ball. I don't know either. Yeah, Don Brown, like you said, I mean, guy should have been gone after last year. I get giving him another shot after 18, even though that was a bludgeoning. But the fact that it was a worse game the following year, that's just, he should have been dismissed. And Durkin and Madison's defenses were both better than his, at least against Ohio State.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Don Brown's play call beat up on lesser talent, but
Durkin was there in 15. So, I mean, his defense did get ran over once too. But all Madison's years under Hoke, I mean, their defenses played Ohio State better than, they did against any of these defenses have. And Madison was Durkin still there in 16?
I honestly couldn't tell you that.
Well, whoever was the defensive coordinator that year, for 3/4 of that game, they looked really good. And then it
might have been Durkin. I mean, I think he was still there.
Yeah. Whatever.
It's just, I don't know. There's no easy fix for them, but they're going to lose 5 games this year.
And them trying to make those points that Madison, when Madison and Washington left, well, our biggest problems on defense are gone now. Being like, yeah, I don't think so. Now I can witness that the biggest problems on your defense ain't gone yet. So,
I mean, I would say, I think from a talent perspective, he's going to leave that team worse than Hope did.
yeah, that's how I'm feeling too. I think because I don't know if he stays another year, their recruiting is still, they're just not getting the type of players that they need to get to even compete because like I said, no coach. We've talked about this before. No coaches go below 3 years on their contract because recruiting is the name of the game in college football.
Right.
And if you are less than 3 years, that's a negative recruiting tool that teams. Well, how do you know he's even going to be there? And
Well, right. And who's going to want to play who's going to want to sign with that team when that coach isn't guaranteed to be there? I mean, these kids commit, most of the time they commit to coaches. They don't commit to schools. That's, I mean, the fact like an Urban Meyer's at Ohio State, for what he was, that's just, gravy on top. But they commit to Urban. They don't necessarily commit to Ohio State. And I mean, it can be vice versa too. That could always be a dream school, but if it doesn't work out, if you don't think the guy's going to be able to develop you or be there, or his style doesn't fit your style, no matter how much you love a school, you're not going to go there.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
So.
Well, I think we'll just want to remind everybody as we wrap the show up, just remember to subscribe to us on YouTube, hit the all notifications, like the videos, and leave us comments. Same thing with the podcast networks. Whatever the podcast network your choice, just remember to subscribe to the show and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we had a good conversation. Hopefully there's not another second half this week against Maryland. I would like to play a full 4 quarters and just start dominating some of these schools. So let's show Maryland and Indiana where they really are at still in the conference.
Right. Exactly.
So let's call it a night. It was a good 49-27 victory. It's nice getting a victory when you still have a lot of things to work on. So we'll look at the positives and move forward.
All right, everybody. Well, everyone have a good night. I'm John.
And I'm Mike.
OH.
IO. Well, thank you for watching here, the Buckeye Bar Guys, here on the Buckeye Bar Talk Network. Please subscribe to the network, and when you get the little notification bell, just hit that. Hit all notifications. That way you'll get alerted when all the new episodes come up. Comment, like the show, and we hope to you join our community. Come join our bar.
Like, comment, share. I'm John. That's Mike. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.